This is a fictional science fiction story. All names, events, technologies, and characters are entirely fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. No real-world harm, violence, or political messages are intended. In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where myths whisper louder than science, an ancient ark vessel stirs. Once forgotten, now awakened by blood, by fate, by a warning etched in the stars. The null tide has returned. The stars twinkled coldly against the vast darkness of space as the transport shuttle approached Vanguard Spire. Commander Cale Draven gazed out of the viewport, watching as the massive space station grew larger. The station hung like a metal spider at the edge of known space, its 8 docking arms extending outward from a central hub that glowed with artificial light. Approaching final docking sequence. "Commander," said the pilot, "Vanguard Spire has cleared us for Arm 3. Tom nodded, gathering his personal tablet and bag. After 9 solar arcs of routine patrols in the inner systems, he was not thrilled to be sent to this remote outpost. The United Terra Coalition rarely stationed senior officers at the edge of explored space unless something important was happening. The shuttle shuddered slightly as magnetic clamps locked onto the exo hull. A mechanical voice announced that it was safe to disembark, and Tom made his way to the exit. As the airlock doors slid open, the familiar smell of recycled air, mixed with machined oil, greeted him, the universal scent of space stations everywhere. The young officer stood waiting, snapping to attention as Tom stepped through. "Commander Draven, welcome to Vanguard Spire. I'm Lieutenant Hara. Admiral Kalen Marr has asked me to escort you to the command center immediately." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Immediately? I haven't even been assigned quarters yet." "The Admiral was very clear, sir. He said it's urgent. Something was definitely off." Tom followed the lieutenant through the crowded main concourse. Vanguard Spire was busier than he had expected. The station had been built as a trading hub, creating a neutral ground where humans could exchange goods with the various alien species from nearby systems. As they walked, Tom noticed an unusual number of aliens huddled in small groups, their voices low and expressions concerned, at least among the species whose expressions he could read. "What's going on, Lieutenant?" "The station seems tense." Davis hesitated before responding. "There's been a discovery, sir. A big one. But I think the Admiral should be the one to brief you." The command center was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Screens displayed star charts and what appeared to be scanned data of a large object. Admiral Kalen Marr, a stout man with silver hair and a perpetually serious expression, spotted Tom and waved him over. "Draven, good to see you. Sorry to rush you in like this, but we have a situation that can't wait." The Admiral gestured to the largest screen. 3 days ago, a mining vessel detected an anomalous object in Helix Expanse, just beyond the Virellan shard line. Initial scans suggested it was an asteroid, but when they approached, he tapped a control, and the image zoomed in to reveal what was clearly an artificial structure. Tom leaned closer. "That's a ark vessel." "Yes, and based on our preliminary analysis, it's ancient. The miners reported it to us immediately, and we've had science teams scanning it remotely since then." The Admiral's face was grim. "Draven, we need someone to lead a team to investigate this vessel, and you're the most qualified officer within reach. What do we know about it so far?" A woman stepped forward from a nearby console. She had dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and wore the blue uniform of the Science Division. "Dr. Alira Voss, Commander. I've been analyzing the scan data. The ark vessel appears to be at least several epochs old, possibly much older. It's approximately 2 kilometers in length with a design unlike anything in our records or the shared Galactic database. And despite its age, it shows minimal structural damage. Tom frowned. That's impossible. No material can withstand that much time and space without degradation. That's what makes this discovery so significant. Dr. Voss replied, the exo-hull appears to be composed of an unknown alloy that our scanners can't properly identify. And there's something else. She hesitated. We've detected extremely faint energy readings from within the Ark vessel. It may still have functioning systems. Admiral Kalen Marr crossed his arms. We need to investigate this immediately. The technology on that Ark vessel could be decades or even centuries beyond our current capabilities. I'm authorizing a full exploration mission, and I want you to lead it. Reed, when do we leave tomorrow morning? Dr. Voss will accompany you as science officer, along with a security team and engineering specialists. The Admiral lowered his voice. There's one more thing you should know. Word about this discovery has spread among the alien traders, and they're concerned. Concerned how Dr. Voss exchanged glances with the Admiral before answering. Some of the species here, particularly the Etherian and Volcran, are claiming the Ark vessel matches descriptions from their ancient myths. They're calling it the Harbinger and warning us not to approach it. Tom couldn't help but scoff. Superstitions? Perhaps. Admiral Kalen Marr said carefully, but several alien delegations have formally requested that we leave the Ark vessel alone. The Volcran representative was particularly adamant, claiming that disturbing the vessel would bring catastrophe. With all due respect, Admiral, we can't base military decisions on alien folktales. Agreed, which is why you're leaving tomorrow. The Admiral handed Tom a data chip. Here's all the information we've gathered so far. Review it and select your team members from the station personnel. The exploration vessel ESS Horizon has been prepared for your mission. After the briefing, Tom found his assigned quarters and began reviewing the mission data. The Ark vessel was truly remarkable. A massive defense vessel by all appearances with what looked like weapon emplacements along its exo-hull. The design was elegant and streamlined, unlike the bulky, practical vessels of current spacefaring civilizations. A chime at his door interrupted his study. "Enter," he called. The door slid open to reveal an Etherian trader. The alien was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large, solid black eyes. It wore the traditional flowing robes of its species, covered in intricate patterns. Commander Draven the Etherian said in the slightly musical accent typical of its kind, "I am Sethari, representative of the Etherian Merchant Guild. May I speak with you?" Tom was surprised, but gestured to a chair. "Of course. What can I do for you?" Sethari remained standing, his posture rigid. "I understand you will leave the mission to the ancient vessel. I have come to personally urge you to reconsider. And why is that? The Ark vessel you have found matches descriptions of a vessel from our oldest historical records. We call it Khazar, the Doombringer." Sethari's large eyes blinked slowly. "According to our histories, such ships brought great destruction in the time before stars had names." Tom tried to keep his expression neutral. "Your concern is noted, but we have orders to investigate. Commander, this is not mere superstition. Many species share similar legends of these vessels. The stories say they contain wonders beyond understanding, but awakening them brings the attention of something worse." Sethari leaned forward. "Our ancestors left very specific warnings. Some knowledge is best left undisturbed. I appreciate your concern, but I have my orders." Sethari straightened. "Then I must inform you that all Etherian merchants will be departing this station before your mission launches. The Volcran and Zarathi are doing the same. The alien moved toward the door, but paused. Commander, if you find inscriptions or symbols resembling crescent moons joined by lightning, do not activate them. That is the mark of the defense arrays according to our texts. After Sethari left, Tom returned to his data review. Though the Etherian's warning lingered in his mind, the alien exodus from the station continued through the night. By morning, nearly 40% of the non-human population had departed on various vessels. The exploration team gathered at Docking Arm 5, where the Horizon waited. Dr. Voss was already aboard, directing the loading of scientific equipment. Tom was introduced to Ren Taylor, the chief engineer assigned to the mission. A stocky man with calloused hands and a skeptical expression. Heard about the alien panic, Taylor said, as they watched the final preparations. Think there's anything to their warnings? Tom shrugged. Probably just cultural taboos about disturbing ancient sites. We've seen it before. Maybe Taylor replied, not sounding convinced, but I've been stationed here 3 years. Never seen the Valif scared of anything before. The 12-person team completed boarding, and Tom took his place on the bridge. As the Horizon detached from the station and set course for the coordinates of the ancient Ark vessel, he noticed several alien vessels departing in the opposite direction as if fleeing. The journey to the derelict took just under 10 hours. When they finally approached, even Tom had to admit it was an impressive sight. The massive defense vessel hung motionless against the backdrop of distant stars, its dark exohull absorbing rather than reflecting light. It was shaped like an elongated arrowhead, with sweeping elegant lines that suggested both speed and power. Scan complete, announced the sensor operator. No signs of active defenses or shields. Atmosphere within the Ark vessel is minimal but present in some sections. Temperature is just above absolute zero. Life signs? Tom asked. None detected, sir. Dr. Voss studied her own readings. The energy signature we detected from the station is stronger now. It appears to be coming from deep within the central section of the vessel. Can we dock directly? Taylor shook his head. I wouldn't recommend it. We can't interface with their systems, and cutting through the exo hull might trigger automated defenses. Better to use the exploration pods and enter through what appears to be a hangar bay on the lower section. Tom nodded. Agreed. Dr. Voss, you'll come with me in the first pod, along with 2 security officers. Taylor, you'll lead the second pod with the remaining team. As they suited up in the heavy exploration here, Dr. Voss approached Tom privately. Commander, I've been analyzing the symbols on the Ark vessel's exo-hull. Some of them bear a striking resemblance to ancient script fragments found on Terra. Specifically markings from the pre-Sumerian period that scholars have never been able to decipher. Tom frowned. What are you suggesting? I'm not sure yet, she replied, but it's a connection we shouldn't ignore. The exploration pods launched from the Horizon, tiny against the massive scale of the ancient defense vessel. As they approached the hangar bay, Tom felt a growing sense of unease. The entrance was large enough to accommodate vessels much bigger than their pods, and as they passed through the outer barrier, emergency lights automatically activated their exploration suits. That's odd. Taylor's voice came through the comm. Something's responding to our presence. The pods landed in the vast, empty hangar. As the teams exited into the cold stillness of the ancient Ark vessel, their helmet lights cut through darkness that hadn't been disturbed for millennia. Tom looked around at the cavernous space, feeling suddenly very small. Along the walls, strange symbols began to glow, with a faint blue light. Commander Dr. Voss said quietly, I think the Ark vessel is waking up. The glowing symbols on the walls brightened as Tom and his team moved deeper into the ancient Ark vessel. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors, the sound swallowed by the vastness around them. Voss ran her scanner over the walls, her face lit by both her helmet light and the soft blue glow from the strange markings. "These symbols are responding to our presence," she said, excitement clear in her voice despite the crackling calm. "They're not just decorative, they're functional. Some kind of technology integrated directly into the Ark vessel's structure." Tom touched one of the glowing marks cautiously. It pulsed brighter at his touch, but felt neither warm nor cold. "Any idea what they mean?" "Not yet, but they bear similarities to scripts found in ancient ruins on Terra and 3 other worlds. The pattern suggests they might be a universal language of sorts." Taylor, who had been examining what appeared to be a sealed doorway, called out, "Commander, I think I found a main access corridor. The architecture suggests it leads toward the center of the Ark vessel." The team gathered at the sealed door. It was massive, easily 15 feet tall, with a complex pattern of the same glowing symbols arranged in concentric circles around its center. Taylor studied the door with his engineering scanner. No obvious opening mechanism, he reported. No sign of power circuits or mechanical locks either, at least none that match anything in our database. Dr. Voss stepped forward, her attention focused on a particular cluster of symbols near what might be considered eye level for a human. "These symbols are different. They're pulsing in a pattern." She reached out toward them. "Doctor, I wouldn't." Tom began, but she had already placed her hand on the glowing marks. The symbols flared brightly under her touch. A low humming filled the air and the massive door began to slide open with surprising smoothness, revealing a long corridor beyond. Lights activated automatically along the ceiling as the door opened, illuminating a path forward. "It responded to human touch, Doctor," Voss said quietly, just like the legends the aliens mentioned. One of the security officers, Rook, shifted uncomfortably. Maybe there was something to those warnings after all. Tom made a quick decision. "We continue as planned. Stay alert and document everything. Taylor, keep a constant signal back to the horizon. If we lose contact for any reason, they're to pull back to a safe distance and contact Outpost Epsilon." The corridor stretched ahead for hundreds of meters, curving gently to follow the Ark vessel's exohull. As they walked, more systems seemed to activate around them. Panels that had been dark for millennia lived up with scrolling symbols. The temperature began to rise slightly, suggesting environmental systems were powering up. "The Ark vessel is definitely reacting to us," Taylor said, checking his instruments. "Power levels are increasing throughout this entire section. It's like it's waking up after a long sleep." Dr. Voss stopped suddenly, pointing to a section of wall that was different from the others. Instead of metal, this panel appeared to be made of a clear crystal-like material. Behind it lay what looked like a command center, with seats positioned before curved consoles. "This must be a command vault of some kind," she said. "The design suggests it was meant for humanoid operators." As they examined the crystal barrier, it suddenly turned transparent, and a door-sized section slid aside, granting them access. The team hesitated, looking to Tong for direction. "Proceed, but with caution," he ordered. "Nothing touches any controls without my direct approval." The command vault was surprisingly human in scale and design. The seats were clearly meant for beings of approximately human size and shape. The consoles, while alien in their details, followed an intuitive layout that suggested displays and input areas. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, but otherwise seemed perfectly preserved. "This doesn't make sense," Taylor muttered as he examined one of the consoles. This technology looks advanced, but the ergonomics are almost perfectly suited for humans. What are the odds of that Dr. Voss was already scanning everything in sight, her expression intense with concentration? The coincidence is statistically improbable unless... She stopped staring at her scanner. "Commander, you need to see this." Tom moved to her side. "What is it I'm detecting? Trace DNA on these controls. Degraded after thousands of years, but still identifiable." She looked up, her eyes wide behind her helmet visor. "It's human DNA, or at least something nearly identical to human." A heavy silence fell over the team as they processed this information. "That's impossible," Rook said finally. "Humans weren't capable of space travel thousands of years ago, let alone building something like this. Unless everything we know about human history is wrong," Dr. Voss replied quietly. Tom was about to respond when a deep vibration ran through the Ark vessel. The lights in the command vault brightened, and the consoles suddenly activated displays filling with scrolling symbols and diagrams. "What's happening?" Tom demanded, backing away from the nearest console. Taylor checked his scanner. Power surged throughout the Ark vessel. Some things initializing the main systems, but we didn't touch anything. In the center of the room, a circular area that had seemed like a simple design element in the floor began to glow. Light streamed upward from it, coalescing into a humanoid shape about 7 feet tall. The figure was composed entirely of light, featureless, except for a suggestion of a head and lens. Dr. Voss gasped. "It's some kind of hologram. An artificial intelligence interface, maybe." The light figure turned toward them, seeming to study each team member in turn. When it spoke, the sound came from all around them. A deep, resonant voice that somehow bypassed their comms and seemed to speak directly into their minds. Genetic identification confirmed. Custodian descendants detected. Primary systems reactivation protocol initiated. The team exchanged bewildered glances. Tom stepped forward cautiously. "We are from the United Terra Coalition. Who? What are you?" The light figure shifted patterns flowing through its form. "This unit is designated Celestis Core. Control interface for custodian worship, the Sentinel. This unit has remained in dormant status for over 100 epochs, awaiting return of custodian descendants." "Custodians?" Dr. Voss asked. "What are custodians?" "The custodians were the protectors, the seeders, the guardians against the null tide." The figure's light pulsed with each phrase. "You bear their genetic markers. You are their legacy." Taylor shook his head in disbelief. "It thinks we're descendants of whoever built this Ark vessel." "Are we?" Rook asked quietly. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded from Taylor's pack. He quickly checked his communications device. "Commander, the Horizon is sending an emergency signal. They've detected multiple ships approaching our position at high speed." Tom activated his comm. "ESS Horizon, this is Commander Draven. Report status." The reply came through with static interference. "Commander, this is ESS Horizon. We're tracking 8 vessels on intercept course. 3 Volcran defense vessel, 2 Etherion cruisers, and 3 others we can't identify. They're broadcasting warnings for us to withdraw immediately. They're charging weapons, sir." "Have they made direct threats?" "Not yet, sir, but they're demanding we abandon the ancient Ark vessel. The Volcran commander is claiming we've activated something dangerous. Sir, they seem genuinely afraid." Tom looked at the glowing figure of Celestis Core, which stood motionless, waiting. The Ark vessel continued to awaken around them, more systems coming online with each passing minute. "ESS Horizon, maintain position, but power up shields. Do not take any active action." "Understood, Commander." "Wait, they are hailing us directly now." the communication channel filled with a harsh clicking language that Tom recognized as Volcran. After a moment, it switched to heavily accented human standard. "Attention, human vessel, you have awakened the Harbinger. You must withdraw immediately. The ancient weapon must not be fully activated or all will suffer. This is your only warning." Tom looked to Dr. Voss, who was still scanning the holographic Celestis core. "Doctor, what exactly have we awakened here?" She shook her head. "I'm not sure, but from what I can gather from these readings, this arc vessel contains technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. The energy readings are off the charts, and there appear to be weapon systems that could easily outmatch anything in the Coalition fleet. Guardians, glowing form, shifted threat detected, defensive protocols, initiating shield generators, powering to combat status." "Wait," Tom called out. "We don't want to start a crisis. The visitors outside represent no significant threat." Guardians stated calmly. "Their weapons cannot penetrate this vessel's defenses. However, their presence is noted. Query, do you wish me to neutralize them?" "No," Tom said firmly. "Absolutely not. Abort any active measures. Acknowledged. Defensive measures only will be maintained." Taylor approached Tom, lowering his voice. "Commander, I think we need to consider the possibility that the aliens weren't just being superstitious. This arc vessel is clearly a highly advanced weapons platform, and it's responding to us specifically because of our DNA. That can't be a coincidence." Tom nodded grimly. "Doctor, what else can you tell us about these custodians the AI mentioned?" Dr. Voss was already interfacing her scanner with one of the consoles. "I'm accessing the arc vessel's historical database now. It's massive. There's enough information here to rewrite everything we know about human origins." She looked up, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Commander, according to this data, humans didn't evolve naturally on Terra. We were placed there by the custodians." "That's absurd," Rook interjected. "Is it?" Dr. Voss challenged. "Think about it. This arc vessel is clearly designed for beings with our exact physical proportions. It responds to our DNA, and now we have an AI telling us we're descendants of his creators." She turned back to her scanner. "The database says the custodians were an advanced race that seeded compatible worlds with their genetic material after some kind of catastrophic defense vessel. Terra was apparently one of those worlds." A sudden shudder ran through the arc vessel. Guardian's form flickered momentarily. "Warning. External vessels are attempting to breach exohull integrity with energy weapons shields, holding at 99.98% capacity. No damage detected." Tom activated his comm again. "ESS Horizon. What's happening out there?" "Commander, the alien fleet has opened launch on the ancient arc vessel. But, sir, their weapons don't seem to be having any effect. Some kind of energy shield has activated around the entire vessel." Another tremor shook the arc vessel, stronger this time. "They're escalating their engagement," Taylor observed. "Why would they risk engagement something so obviously superior to their own technology? Because they're terrified of it." Tom realized whatever this arc vessel was built to fight against must be worse than anything they can imagine. Guardian's light, form, pulsed. The arc vessel systems are now at 42% operational capacity. Main navigation and historical archives are online. Defense arrays remain in standby mode. Query: what are your instructions, custodian descendants? Tom looked at his team, then back to the hologram. First, I want to know exactly what this arc vessel was built for. What is the null tide you mentioned earlier? Guardian's form darkened slightly. The null tide is the ancient hostile force, the consumer of worlds, the darkness between stars. They came from outside, and they sought to devour all sentient life. The custodians fought them across 1,000 systems. This vessel is one of 50 created to stand against the final incursion. Dr. Voss looked up from her scanner, her face pale. Commander, according to these records, the custodians didn't just seed Terra with their DNA as a scientific experiment. They were creating a backup, insurance that their lineage would survive even if they lost the defense vessel. And did they lose, Tom? Asked Celestis Core. Unknown. Communication with Custodian Command ceased 97,342 cycles ago. This unit entered dormant status as programmed, awaiting genetic descendants to continue the mission. Another violent shudder ran through the Ark vessel. Commander Taylor said urgently, "We need to make a decision. Either we shut this Ark vessel down and leave, or we commit to understanding what it is and why it was built. But those aliens out there aren't going to stop engagement. And I don't think this Celestis Core is going to let us leave now that we've activated the primary systems." Tom looked around at the awakening defense vessel, a vessel built by what might be humanity's true ancestors, created to fight a defense vessel against an hostile force so terrible that even the memory of it frightened spacefaring civilizations thousands of years later. "The AI," he said finally. "Why has this Ark vessel awakened now, after all this time?" The light figure seemed to grow more intense. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures, consistent with null tide activity at the edge of this galaxy. Dormancy protocol was terminated. The cycle begins again. Tom stared at the AI, trying to process the enormous implications of what the AI had just revealed. "The null tide is returning. You're saying this hostile force that nearly disabled all life thousands of years ago is coming back?" "Affirmative. Initial null tide signatures have been detected in the Drexler sector, approximately 237 light-years from this position. Current estimates suggest first contact with populated worlds will occur within 6.4 standard months." Dr. Voss looked up from the console she had been studying. "Commander, I found visual records of these null tide entities." She tapped a series of symbols and a holographic display appeared in the center of the command vault. The image showed what appeared to be normal space, with stars visible against the darkness. Then something moved. It wasn't an Ark vessel or any recognizable object. It was as if the darkness itself was flowing, gathering, becoming somehow more dense than the emptiness around it. As they watched, the darkness formed tendrils that reached toward a small planet in the recording. Where those tendrils touched the planet's atmosphere, the air itself seemed to decay, turning gray and lifeless. "The null tide consumes energy in all forms," the AI explained as they watched in horror. "Biological, electrical, nuclear, gravitational, all is taken to feed its growth. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be appeased. It exists only to consume. And the custodians fought this." Taylor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The custodians were the only species with technology advanced enough to resist the null tide's consumption. They created barriers, weapons, and eventually this network of the Sentinel ships to contain the incursion. Tom turned away from the horrifying image. "The AI, you said the null tide signatures were detected at the edge of the galaxy. How long before it reaches populated systems?" "At observed expansion rates, approximately 40 quanta, until first contact with inhabited worlds." "And this Ark vessel, what exactly is its purpose? How is it meant to fight this thing?" The AI's light form shifted, expanding to create a three-dimensional model of the Ark vessel around them. Specific sections lit up as it spoke. "This vessel contains 3 primary defense systems against the null tide. First, the Aegis array, a section near the Ark vessel's core, glowed brighter. These create energy fields that the null tide cannot penetrate or consume. Second, the purification beams. What appeared to be weapon emplacements along the exo-hull, illuminated. These can excise null tide matter from normal space, forcing it back to its home dimension. Third, the seed network. Small points throughout the Ark vessel's structure lit up. These enable the creation of a galactic shield network when combined with the other 49, the Sentinel ships. Dr. Voss looked up from her scanner. This technology is incredible. The power requirements alone would be beyond anything we can currently produce. This vessel is powered by a controlled singularity core, the AI stated. It can operate at full capacity for approximately 15,000 standard years before requiring refueling. A sudden energy surge rocked the Ark vessel. Guardian's form flickered momentarily, warning. The engagement vessels have modified their weapons to attempt shield penetration. Shield efficiency reduced to 97.3%. No critical damage detected. They're getting more desperate, Tom said. We need to communicate with them, make them understand the situation. The AI turned its featureless face toward Tom. They already understand. Their ancestors witnessed the last null tide defense vessel. The knowledge has been preserved in their cultural memory, though much has been lost or distorted over time. They fear this Ark vessel because they know its purpose, but they do not understand that it represents salvation, not destruction. Tom activated his comlink. ESS Horizon. This is Commander Draven. I need a direct channel to the lead Volat vessel. After a moment of static, a harsh, clicking voice came through. Translated by the Ark vessel's systems. Human Commander, you have awakened death. Shut down the Harbinger, or we will disable your support vessel. This is Commander Draven. We've discovered information about the Ark vessel and the threat it was built to fight. The null tide is returning. The ancient hostile force your people remember in their myths. This Ark vessel is a weapon against it, not a threat to you. There was a long pause before the Volat responded. Deception. The Harbinger brings the darkness. All records are clear. Dr. Voss had been scrolling through the Ark vessel's historical database. She looked up suddenly. Commander, I think I understand the confusion. According to these records, when the null tide first appeared, many species believed the custodian ships were causing the phenomenon, not fighting it. The ships would appear just before null tide incursions because they detected them coming. Tom nodded and returned to the communication. Volcran Commander, your ancestors misunderstood. These ships were built to fight the darkness, not bring it. They appeared before the darkness came because they detected it approaching. We have proof in the Ark vessel's historical records. Words mean nothing. The Harbinger must be disabled before it is fully awakened. The AI interrupted. The engagement vessels are preparing to launch high-yield plasma charges at your support Ark vessel. Such an engagement will likely disable it completely. Tom made a quick decision. The AI, can you extend the shields to protect our support vessel without harming the alien ships? Affirmative. Extending defensive perimeter now. Outside the energy shield surrounding the ancient defense vessel expanded outward, encompassing the much smaller horizon. The Volcran weapons launch impacted the shield, harmlessly, energy dissipating across its surface in ripples of blue light. Their weapons cannot penetrate custodian defenses, the AI stated. However, I detect 27 additional vessels approaching this position. Local species are gathering their fleets to attempt destruction of the Sentinel. Tom turned to his team. We need to convince them we're telling the truth, and quickly. Rook, who had been quiet for some time, spoke up. "Commander, if this Ark vessel has records of the null tide and its engagement, can we share those with them? Visual evidence might convince them." Dr. Voss nodded eagerly. The Ark vessel's communication systems should be capable of broadcasting data to their vessels. We could show them exactly what we've been seeing. The AI, can you transmit the historical records of the null tide engagement to the surrounding vessels? Affirmative. Preparing data package for transmission. Taylor had been examining one of the other consoles. "Commander, I think I found something else that might help. This appears to be a navigation system showing the locations of the Sentinel ships." He gestured to a star map displayed on the console. Small points of light were scattered across it, most glowing dimly. "According to this, there are other ships like this one in dormant statuses near several of the alien home worlds. If they've preserved myths about this Ark vessel, they might recognize the others." Tom moved to examine the map. "The AI, are these other ships also awakening negative? The Sentinel was positioned as an outer perimeter guard. It is the first to detect the returning null tide signatures. The other Sentinels will not activate until they detect null tide presence or receive the awakening signal from this vessel. And what would happen if they received that signal? All dormant Sentinels would begin reactivation procedures. They would seek out custodian descendants, humans, to complete their activation, then move to predetermined defensive positions throughout the galaxy." Dr. Voss looked up from her console. "Commander, I've been reviewing more of the historical data. The custodians didn't just seed Earth with their DNA. There are references to at least 12 other worlds where they left populations. Some of those worlds are now home to major civilizations. Are you saying other species might also be descended from these custodians?" She shook her head. "No. The data is quite specific. Only humans on Earth retain the pure genetic markers. The other seeded populations either died out or evolved differently due to environmental pressures. Guardian's form brightened. Message prepared for transmission to surrounding vessels. The data package contains historical records of the null tide incursion, the custodian defense network, and predictive models of the current null tide expansion." "Send it," Tom ordered. The engagement ships ceased launch shortly after the transmission began. For several minutes there was no response. Then the communication channel activated again. "Human Commander." The Voleth's voice sounded different now, subdued, perhaps even fearful. "The images you have shared, they match our oldest records. The darkness that consumes. If what you say is true, if the Harbinger fights against this darkness rather than bringing it." "It's true," Tom confirmed. "And according to the Ark vessel's sensors, we have less than 9 solar arcs before the null tide reaches populated systems. This Ark vessel, the Sentinel, is part of a network built to defend all life in the galaxy." Another voice joined the channel, the musical tones of an Etherian. "The records you have shared show monuments on our homeworld, structures we believe were built by the ancestors. They are identical to your images of custodian architecture. The custodians visited many worlds." The AI stated, its voice now broadcasting to all surrounding ships. "They built outposts, research facilities, and monuments across the galaxy. When they realized the null tide could not be permanently defeated, they created the Sentinel network as a final defense and seeded selected worlds with their genetic material to ensure their legacy would survive." The Volcron spoke again. "If the darkness returns, as you claim, our weapons will be useless against it. Even our combined fleets could not stand against what your records show. That's why the Sentinels were built," Tom explained. "But according to the AI, they need human operators to fully activate. The custodians designed them to recognize their own DNA that now exists only in humans from Terra. There was a long pause before the Volcran responded. We will cease our engagement. We must consult with our elders and other species. If the ancient hostile force truly returns, old fears must be set aside. As the communication ended, Tom turned to his team. We need to report this to Terra immediately. The Coalition needs to understand what we're facing and what this Ark vessel represents. Taylor shook his head in disbelief. How do we explain to Terra Command that humans are apparently the descendants of an ancient advanced civilization, and that we're the only ones who can operate a network of superweapons needed to save the galaxy from a cosmic horror? We show them exactly what we've seen, Tom replied grimly. And we pray they believe us faster than the aliens did. Voss looked thoughtful. Commander, there's something else to consider. If humans are truly custodian descendants, and if these sentinels were designed specifically to respond to our DNA, this could completely redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. We wouldn't just be newcomers to interstellar politics. We'd be heirs to the most advanced civilization ever known. Tom nodded slowly, and suddenly responsible for defending everyone against a threat most humans have never even heard of. He turned to the AI. How much time would it take to fully activate all the sentinels in the network, with sufficient human operators at each location, approximately 12 quanta? However, optimal defense positioning requires a minimum of 20 quanta of preparation. And we have less than 194 days before the null tide arrives. Tom closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of the situation. When he opened them, he had made his decision. Doctor, download everything you can from the Ark vessel's database. Taylor, I want a complete technical assessment of what would be needed to crew this vessel. We're returning to Vanguard Spire immediately to make our report. As they prepared to depart, Guardian's light form approached Tom. Commander Draven of Terra, you now bear the responsibility that the custodians planned for their descendants. The survival of all sentient life depends on humanity assuming its intended role as guardians of this galaxy. Are you prepared for this burden? Tom faced the holographic figure, thinking of Terra, a planet that had no idea it was about to be thrust into the center of a cosmic defense vessel thousands of years in the making. We don't have a choice, he replied. Humanity will have to be ready. The journey back to Vanguard Spire was tense and silent. Tom sat in the shuttle reviewing the data Dr. Voss had downloaded from the Sentinel's archives. The scope of what they'd discovered was almost too enormous to comprehend. Humanity's true origins, an ancient cosmic hostile force, and a desperate last plan put in motion thousands of years ago by their advanced ancestors. As the shuttle docked with the station, Tom was surprised to see Admiral Kalen Marr waiting for them at the airlock, his expression grave. Commander Draven, your report was difficult to believe. Tom nodded. I understand, sir. If I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't believe it either. The alien fleets have been contacting us non-stop since your transmission. The station is currently surrounded by 37 vessels from 14 different species. Some are offering coalition, others demanding we disable the ancient Ark vessel. The Admiral gestured for them to follow him. The Coalition High Conclave has called an emergency session. They're waiting to speak with you now. Tom glanced at Dr. Voss and Talor, who looked as exhausted as he felt. Now, sir, we've barely had time to organize our findings. The High Conclave doesn't want organized findings, Commander. They want to know if we're truly facing an apocalyptic threat in less than 9 solar arcs, and if our only hope is a fleet of ancient defense vessel that only humans can operate. The Admiral's voice dropped lower, and they want to know why we weren't told that humans are apparently descendants of the most advanced species the galaxy has ever known. Because we didn't know either, sir. They were led to the station's main conference room, which had been converted into a makeshift council chamber. Large screens dominated one wall each, showing the face of a different coalition high conclave member. These were the most powerful humans in explored space, military leaders, colonial governors, and Earth representatives. All of them were staring at Tom and his team, with expressions ranging from skepticism to outright fear. High Conclave President Soraya Thane, a stern woman with silver hair, spoke first. "Commander Draven, we've reviewed your preliminary report and the data you transmitted. Before we proceed, I need to hear directly from you. Do you stand by these claims that this null-tide entity is real and approaching our territory?" Tom stepped forward. "Madam President, members of the High Conclave, everything in my report is accurate to the best of my knowledge. The ancient Ark vessel contains extensive historical records of the previous null-tide incursion. Its sensors have detected new null-tide activity at the edge of our galaxy. And yes, according to the Ark vessel's AI, we have less than 9 solar arcs before it reaches Soai's populated systems. And this business about humans being descendants of these custodians?" asked Marshal Voren Krell, his bushy eyebrows drawn together in a frown. "You expect us to believe our entire understanding of human evolution is wrong?" Dr. Voss moved to Tom's side. "Sir, the evidence is compelling. The Ark vessel responds specifically to human DNA. Its systems, controls, and even the physical dimensions of its interior are perfectly suited for human operators. The historical archives contain detailed genetic records showing the direct link between custodians and modern humans, a High Conclave member." Tom didn't recognize, leaned forward on her screen. "Doctor, if what you're saying is true, why hasn't this connection been discovered before now? Surely in all our archaeological research." "The custodians were careful," Dr. Voss explained. "According to the records, they erased most evidence of their presence on Terra. They wanted humans to develop naturally, without the burden of knowing they were created as a fail-safe against a cosmic horror. They left only enough clues for us to recognize the connection when we reached a sufficient technological level." The chamber fell silent as the High Conclave members digested this information. Finally, President Soraya Thane spoke again. "What about the Sentinel ships?" "The report mentions 49 others scattered throughout the galaxy." Tom nodded, "Currently dormant, but they can be activated remotely from the Ark vessel we discovered. Each requires human operators to function at full capacity. And you believe these ships are our only defense against this null-tide entity?" "Based on the historical records, conventional weapons had no effect on it. Only the technology developed by the custodians was effective." Admiral Kalen Marr, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. "Madam President, members of the High Conclave, while Commander Reeve and his team were returning to the station, we received transmissions from 17 different alien governments. Most of them are familiar with legends about both the Sentinel ships and the null-tide. They're taking this threat very seriously." "Of course they are." Marshal Voren Krell nodded. "If the only defense requires human operators, they need us now. Convenient for species that have treated humanity as galactic newcomers for generations. With respect," General Tom said carefully, "their fear seems genuine. The Volcran were willing to disable our Ark vessel to prevent the Sentinel from activating. That suggests they truly believe the threat was real." President Soraya Thane rubbed her temples. "Commander Draven, in your opinion, what should our next steps be?" Tom had been considering this question since they left the Sentinel. "We need to secure the Sentinel immediately. Then we need to begin locating and activating the others according to the AI, the Ark vessel's eye. We need to have the full network operational within 3 months to have any chance of stopping the null tide. That would require sending human crews to 49 locations across the galaxy, a High Conclave member pointed out. Many of those would be deep in alien territory, which is why we need to begin diplomatic negotiations immediately, Tom replied. The alien fleets gathered here represent our first potential allies. If their ancient records contain information about the locations of other Sentinels, that could save us valuable time. Dr. Voss stepped forward again. High Conclave members. I should also point out that the Sentinel's database contains technology far beyond our current capabilities. Medical advancements, energy production, FTL drive systems, knowledge that could advance human development by centuries. This caught their attention. Several High Conclave members leaned forward with renewed interest. You believe we can access and understand this technology? President Soraya Thane asked. The Ark vessel was designed to be operated by humans. Dr. Voss replied, its systems are intuitive to us in a way they aren't to other species. The AI is also programmed to teach custodian descendants how to use the technology. The High Conclave fell into discussion among themselves, their voices overlapping as they debated. Tom glanced at Taylor, who gave him a tired smile. From engineers on a routine exploration mission to humanity's last hope against cosmic horror, Taylor muttered quite a promotion. After several minutes, President Soraya Thane raised her hand for silence. We've reached a preliminary decision. Commander Draven, you will return to the Sentinel with an expanded team of specialists. Your mission is to secure the vessel, learn everything possible about its systems, and prepare for the activation of the other Sentinels. She paused, her expression grave. However, we will not yet inform the general public about the null tide threat. The potential for panic is too great, especially given the time frame. This operation will be classified at the highest level. Tom frowned. Madam President, with respect, will need resources from across human territory to properly staff 49 the Sentinel ships. That can't be done in secret. We'll develop a cover story as needed, she replied dismissively. For now, only those with direct involvement will be informed. Admiral Kalen Marr cleared his throat. Madam President, there's another matter to consider. The alien fleets surrounding this station are demanding information. They know something significant has been discovered. If we attempt to keep this classified, it could lead to interspecies crisis at precisely the time we need cooperation. The President considered this, then nodded reluctantly. You make a fair point, Admiral. Very well, you are authorized to begin preliminary discussions with the alien representatives. Emphasize our willingness to cooperate against this common threat, but make no specific commitments without Council approval. She turned back to Tom. Commander Draven, given your first-hand experience with the Sentinel and its AI, you will lead this mission. Dr. Voss will continue as Chief Science Officer. Admiral Kalen Marr will coordinate from Vanguard Spire and serve as diplomatic liaison with our alien allies. As the meeting concluded, Tom and his team were dismissed to prepare for their return to the Sentinel. In the corridor outside, Admiral Kalen Marr pulled Tom aside. The Council is terrified, he said quietly, not just of this null tide thing, but of what this means for humanity's place in the galaxy. If what you discovered is true, every aspect of human history needs to be reconsidered. Tom nodded. I know, sir, I'm still processing it myself. The aliens are scared too, but for different reasons. The Etherian ambassador told me their oldest legends call this time the awakening, when the AI race would return to fight the darkness. The Admiral's eyes were troubled. Their legends also say that not all would survive the coming engagement. Before Tom could respond, his communication device beeped. It was a message from the team monitoring the Sentinel. Commander Draven, the Sentinel is showing increased power signatures. Its systems are continuing to activate on their own. And, sir, it's broadcasting some kind of signal. Tom exchanged alarmed glances with the Admiral. What kind of signal? Unknown, sir, but it's directed toward the coordinates where the AI indicated the null tide has been detected. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. I'm returning to the Ark vessel immediately. Have a shuttle ready in 10 minutes. As Tom hurried to gather his team, he found Dr. Voss already reviewing data on her tablet, her expression grim. What is it? Doctor? She looked up, her face pale. I've been analyzing the null tide detection data from the Sentinel. The readings are increasing exponentially. It's as if the null tide is accelerating toward our region of space. The AI said we had about 9 solar arcs. That calculation was based on the initial detection. According to these new readings, she swallowed hard. We might have less than 3 months before first contact with inhabited systems. Taylor joined them, his usual practical demeanor now deadly serious. The engineering team reports the Sentinel's weapon systems are powering up, not to full capacity yet, but they're definitely preparing for something. Tom made a quick decision. We need to get back to the Ark vessel now. If its systems are activating, automatically something has changed. He turned to Dr. Voss. Bring everything you have on the Sentinel network. We may need to accelerate the timeline for awakening the other ships. As they hurried toward the shuttle bay, Tom's mind raced with the implications. Humanity had spent its existence looking up at the stars, wondering if they were alone in the universe. Now they discovered they were the descendants of its most advanced civilization, created specifically to be the last line of defense against an unimaginable horror. The shuttle detached from the station and accelerated toward the ancient defense vessel. As they approached, Tom could see that the Sentinel's appearance had changed. What had been a dark, dormant hulk was now alive with patterns of light moving across its exo-hull. The symbols they had seen inside the Ark vessel were now visible on its exterior, glowing with blue-white energy. "It's beautiful," De Vos whispered. "And terrifying," Tom added. "It's a weapon designed to fight something that consumes whole worlds, and now it's waking up because that hostile force is returning." The shuttle entered the Sentinel's hangar bay, which was now fully illuminated and humming with energy. The AI was waiting for them, its light form now more defined, almost solid in appearance. "Commander Draven, you have returned at a critical time. The null tide has detected the Sentinel's activation. It has changed course and is accelerating toward this region of space." Tom felt his blood run cold. "You said we had 9 solar arcs. That assessment has been revised based on new data. The null tide appears to recognize the threat the Sentinel network poses. It is now moving with purpose rather than simply expanding." "How much time do we have?" Guardian's form flickered slightly 12 quanta until first contact with inhabited systems. "However, we face a more immediate concern." The AI gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing a star map of nearby space. A dark, amorphous shape was visible at one edge, with tendrils extending outward. "The null tide has sent an advance force, a smaller manifestation that appears to be designate the Sentinel specifically. Estimated arrival, 4 quanta." Tom stared at the holographic display, watching as the dark mass at the edge moved steadily toward their position. 4 quanta. That's not enough time to prepare. This advance force appears to be a scout. The AI explained it is smaller than a full null-tide manifestation, but still dangerous. Its purpose is likely to assess the Sentinel's capabilities, and if possible disable it before the main body arrives. Dr. Voss studied the display intently. Can this Ark vessel defeat it alone? Affirmative, but only if fully operational current system status is at 68% capacity. Minimal human crew requirements must be met to achieve full operational status. Tom made a quick decision. What exactly do you need from us to reach full capacity? Guardian's form shifted, creating a schematic of the Ark vessel with several areas highlighted. The Sentinel requires 12 human operators in key positions to achieve full combat readiness. The primary command node must be occupied by a human with decision-making authority. The central area of the Ark vessel glowed brighter. Secondary systems require humans at 11 other control nodes throughout the vessel. We need to report this to the Council immediately, Tom said, turning to Taylor. Begin identifying the key systems that need operators. Doctor, I want you to continue analyzing the null-tide data. Find any weakness, any pattern we can exploit. As Taylor and Dr. Voss set to work, Tom established a secure communication link with Vanguard's spire. Admiral Kalen Marr's face appeared on the screen, his expression tense. Commander Draven, the Council is an emergency session. The alien fleets are reporting unusual readings from the direction of the Cerinthian Veil. Dark energy signatures that match their historical records of the null tide. We've detected it too, Admiral. The AI says an advance force will reach us in 4 quanta. We need a crew of 12 humans to bring the Sentinel to full operational capacity. The Admiral's eye is widened. 4 quanta. That's Commander. I'll send you every qualified person we have, but you should know the situation here is deteriorating. Some of the alien vessels are preparing to flee the sector entirely. Others are demanding we share access to the Sentinel technology. Tell them the technology won't work for them. It's genetically keyed to humans. They know that. The Admiral replied grimly, which is why 3 different species have proposed taking human volunteers to accompany their ships when they evacuate. Tom felt a cold anger building. We're facing extinction and they're thinking about kidnapping humans as technology operators. Not all of them. The Etherian and, surprisingly, the Volcran have offered military support. They're requesting permission to send representatives to your position to coordinate defense plans. Tom considered this, briefly approved, but limited to 1 representative from each species. We don't have time for a committee meeting. After ending the communication, Tom found the AI waiting for him. The Ace light form seems somehow more solid, more defined than before. Commander Draven, while we prepare for the arrival of additional human operators, there is another matter requiring attention. The dormant Sentinels must be alerted to the null tide's approach. You said they wouldn't activate until they detected the null tide themselves. Correct, but by then it may be too late for proper defensive positioning. The Sentinel, can transmit an awakening signal that will initiate preliminary activation sequences in all dormant Sentinels. They would then be ready to receive human operators when they arrive. Tom nodded. Do it. Send the signal. Guardian's form pulsed brightly. Awakening signal transmitted. Estimated response time varies by distance. Nearest Sentinels will begin activation within hours. Most distant units may require up to 12 days. The next 4 quanta passed in a blur of frantic activity. The Coalition sent 30 of their best officers and specialists to the Sentinel, though the AI confirmed that only 12 were needed for essential systems. The aliens' representatives arrived as well, an Aetherion elder named Velun, and a grizzled Volcran commander called Kraft. Tom was surprised by how quickly both alien representatives adapted to the reality of the situation. They reviewed the historical records without questioning their authenticity, and offered valuable insights based on their species' historical knowledge of the previous Nulltide defense vessel. Our oldest texts speak of the final engagement Valen explained during one strategy session. They described great vessels of light forming a barrier across the spiral arm where the darkness first appeared. The barrier held for 7 cycles of our world before the Guardians were forced to retreat. Kraft the Volcran clicked his mandibles in what Tom had learned was a sign of agreement. Volcran defense vessel songs tell of the darkness that consumed without mercy and the shining shields that stood against it. Our ancestors fought alongside the Tall Ones, the Custodians, as you call them. Dr. Voss looked up from her data tablet. The historical records confirm both accounts. The Custodians created a defensive line using the Sentinel network, but it wasn't enough to defeat the Nulltide entirely. They could only contain it, push it back to the outer regions of the galaxy. And now, it has returned, Tom said quietly. But this time the Custodians aren't here to lead the defense. Vylon's large eyes fixed on Tom. No, this time, their children must take their place. As the countdown to the advance force's arrival reached the final day, the Sentinel was humming with activity. The 12 human operators had taken their positions throughout the Ark vessel. With Tom in the central command node, the AI had integrated itself into the Ark vessel's systems, its light form now able to appear anywhere within the vessel to provide guidance. Reports from across the galaxy confirmed that the other Sentinels were awakening. Several had already been reached by human crews sent from the nearest Coalition outposts. Others in more distant regions were still waiting. A massive diplomatic effort was underway to secure safe passage for human crews through alien territories to reach the remaining Sentinels. In orbit around the station, over 200 ships from 23 different species had gathered. Some had come to witness what might be the first engagement of a new Nulltide defense vessel. Others had come to fight, offering their vessels as support for the Sentinel, despite knowing their conventional weapons would likely be useless. Tom stood in the command center, watching as the final preparations were completed. Dr. Voss approached him, her expression a mixture of excitement and fear. All systems are operational, Commander. The Sentinel is at 100% capacity for the first time in nearly millennia past. Tom nodded, and the Aegis array. Ready. According to the AI, they should be able to contain the advance force completely. Taylor joined them, wiping grease from his hands. Engine systems are online. We can maneuver if needed, though the AI suggests we hold position and let the Nulltide come to us. Where are our alien representatives? Observation deck, Taylor replied. They wanted to witness the approach. Tom checked the time. 1 hour until estimated contact. I should join them. He found Mail and Kraft standing before the massive viewport on the observation deck. The stars glittered against the blackness of space, peaceful and unchanged. For now, Commander Draven Mail acknowledged, without turning from the viewport. We have been discussing the old stories. In our legends, the final engagement against the Nulltide was not won by technology alone. Tom approached, standing between the two aliens. "What do you mean?" Korvax made a low clicking sound. "The null tide is intelligent, adaptive. The custodians discovered that predictable defense patterns were eventually overcome. Victory required instinct, intuition, qualities that no eye, even one as advanced as the AI systems. That's why the ships need human operators," Tom realized. Not just because of DNA recognition, but because the custodians believed that their descendants would inherit the qualities needed to defeat the null tide. "Precisely," Mail confirmed. "Your ancestors built these great machines, but they understood that machines alone could not win. The living mind, with its capacity for improvisation and intuitive leaps, was their true weapon." A soft alarm sounded throughout the Ark vessel. The AI's voice came over the communication system. "Null tide advance force detected at extreme sensor range. Estimated arrival in 42 minutes. Tom returned to the command center and took his position. The holographic displays showed the approaching darkness clearly now, a flowing, shifting mass that seemed to absorb light rather than simply block it. It moved with purpose directly toward the Sentinel's position. "All personnel to engagement stations," Tom ordered. "Barrier generators to stand by. Purification beams charged and ready." The minutes ticked by as the dark mass grew larger on their sensors. Coalition ships and alien vessels moved to a safe distance, forming a wide perimeter around these. The Sentinel. Tom could feel the tension building among his crew, a mixture of fear and determination. "Commander," the AI's voice came from beside him as its light form appeared. "I must inform you that this will be the first combat test of the Sentinel with human operators. While you carry custodian DNA, you lack their thousands of years of experience fighting the null tide." "We'll have to learn quickly," Tom replied. "Humanity has always been good at that." The darkness was now visible without sensors, a patch of utter blackness against the star field, moving like liquid in zero gravity. As it approached, tendrils began to extend outward, reaching toward the Sentinel. Barrier generators online reported one of the operator's field extending now. A shimmering blue energy field surrounded the Sentinel, extending outward in a sphere. The null tide tendrils touched it and recoiled as if burned by the contact. The main mass paused, seeming to consider this resistance. "It's testing our defenses," Dr. Voss observed, just as the AI predicted. Suddenly the dark mass surged forward, splitting into multiple streams that flowed around the barrier, seeking any weakness. Where the darkness touched the energy field, flashes of light erupted as the two forces fought for dominance. Barrier holding at 94% efficiency called an operator. The null tide is applying pressure to multiple points simultaneously. Tom watched as the darkness continued its assault, methodically testing different areas of the barrier. It was behaving intelligently, strategically, confirming the AI's warnings about its nature. "Prepare phase lance turrets," Tom ordered. "Designate the largest concentration and launch when ready." Brilliant white-blue energy lanced out from the Sentinel's weapon emplacements, striking the dark mass. Where the beams touched the darkness, shredded and dissolved, forced back from normal space. The null tide entity recoiled, gathering itself into a more cohesive form, as if reconsidering its approach. For 3 hours, the engagement continued. The null tide probed and attacked, while the Sentinel defended and counterattacked. The barrier weakened in places, but held. The phase lance turrets drove back the darkness repeatedly, but it always reformed and tried new approaches. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of tense combat, the dark entity began to retreat. It pulled back its tendrils and flowed away from the Sentinel, accelerating back toward deep space. "Is it over?" someone asked. The AI's light form pulsed. "Negative. The advance force has gathered the information it sought. It now returns to the main body to share what it has learned about our defenses." Tom leaned back in his command chair, exhausted but relieved. "So we won this round?" "Yes," the AI confirmed, "but the true test will come when the main null tide force arrives." This was merely the first skirmish in what will be a long defense vessel. As reports of their success spread throughout human space and beyond, something unexpected happened. The alien fleets that had gathered to witness the engagement began to offer formal alliances. Species that had been suspicious or hostile toward humans were now seeking partnerships, offering resources, ships, and support. In the Sentinel's conference room, Tom met with representatives from 12 different species, including meal and craft. The mood was solemn, but determined. "What you have witnessed today is only the beginning," Tom told them. "According to the AI, the main null tide force is still coming, and it will be thousands of times more powerful than what we just faced. But now we have seen that it can be fought." Korvac set his mandibles clicking with what Tom had come to recognize as determination. "The Harbinger, the Sentinel, is as powerful as our legends claimed." Mail nodded, "And now all sentient species understand that humans are indeed the heirs of the custodians. The old alliances will be renewed." Tom looked around at the gathered aliens beings that until recently had viewed humans as upstarts in the galactic community. Now, they looked to humanity with hope, with expectation. "We have 18 quanta to prepare for the main null tide force." Tom said, "We need to activate all remaining Sentinels and position them according to the AI's strategic recommendations. We need your help to reach the Sentinels in your territories and to evacuate civilian populations from the projected path of the null tide." One by one, the alien representatives pledged their support. As the meeting concluded, Tom found himself standing alone with the AI's light form. "The custodians would be proud," the AI said. "Their plan has worked. Their descendants have awakened in time to face the returning threat, and you have already begun to unite the younger species." Tom gazed out at the stars, thinking of Terra, a planet whose people still had no idea of their true heritage or the cosmic role they had been created to fulfill. "We ignored the warnings," he said quietly. "We dismissed the aliens' fears as superstition, but the myth was true, both the danger and our purpose in facing it. Your ancestors built these Sentinels as their legacy," the AI replied, "but they knew that ships and weapons alone would not be enough. They created humanity not just as genetic vessels, but as inheritors of their courage and determination. The coming defense vessel will test both." As he looked out at the fleet of alien ships surrounding the Sentinel, Tom felt the weight of history, both the history humanity had known and the deeper, older truth they were just beginning to discover. The defense vessel had indeed proven the myths were true, but it had revealed something more. Humanity's destiny among the stars was not just to explore, but to protect, to guard, to stand against the darkness that threatened all life. Behind him, the Sentinel hummed with power, ready for the engagement to come. And across the galaxy, 49 more were awakening, calling out to the descendants of their creators. The ancient plan was in motion, the Guardians were returning, and this time they would not fail.